we look at some system enhancements. And again, for me, this is a planning tool. Turn that off. We can go out. We look at a future fire station, certainly in the Carmel Church area. Road layer still on. And we look at another enhancement would be adding EMS coverage to Sparta. We can begin to see what our system would look like. All right, if we looked at rescue, which again is our predominant call volume, you notice out here our response time diminishes greatly. If we added EMS coverage to Sparta and added a Carmel Church station with an ambulance, 94% of the county would be covered 0 to 10 minutes time to service. So from a planning perspective for us, that's important. If we turn off that rescue, we look at fire, you notice we do away with the yellow in Caroline Pines and all of this area here as far as fire response. For me, that's a planning tool. For you as the board, that's a planning tool as we look down the road for a new station in the Carmel Church. And for me, adding EMS coverage to Sparta, we can kind of predict what our outcomes will be. Again, it's all based on staffing and cost. But for me, those two options, I think, are probably within the next 10 years for the county. So. It's up to the board whether you want to put any of this data on the website, so I leave that for discussion. If you want to ask any questions about it, we'll certainly try to answer those.
Okay. Board members have questions.
Do we want to refine the data? The data is valid. You feel comfortable with all the data?
The data's been validated, correct, by driving actually. So computer model here, road tested. So I'm comfortable with the data. What I'm not comfortable with, and I think it's important that you know, this is strictly driving. I don't want to give the illusion our response time is 0 to 5 minutes. Our response time is going to be somewhat longer than that. We have to add some degree of artificiality. We need to add some verbal statements or written statements on here saying, hey, this is best case scenario, all stations staffed. This is what it's going to take to get to your house.
Mr. Chairman, I applaud anything we can do to make government seem more open and things of that nature. I'm just not sure this is going to serve the right purpose out on the website, because if I click on it and say it's supposed to be 5 minutes because I'm in a green area, there could be a lot of problems. Now, it's a planning tool. It might be good for staff to use, but I don't know if it's generally a public tool.
Well, personally, I just feel like it needs to be a planning tool, and it needs to be for us as a board to see, because we all represent various areas here, and it's no secret. We're concerned about the county, but we're also concerned about our area and what needs to be done to address the issues of our various areas. So I don't know that necessarily putting it on the website is necessary at this time. I think what's more important is that we as elected officials know and understand what our area needs are and try to work towards trying to deal with that and to for better service to the citizens, basically. So,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
You said you had you said you had tested this?
Yes.
I mean, as well. I guess my concern is, for the lakes, I guess we cover Lake Caroline too, as well as Lake Landor. I have a hard time believing in some of the areas in Lake Landor, for example, that a fire truck, once the call is going up to Lake Landor, that I don't think I can be from the Food Line parking lot or to my house in 10 minutes. I mean, and that's going down Lady Smith Road. I mean, I'm kind of farther back in the lake, so with that,
again, we didn't test every property. We tested the boundaries of each color.
right.
So, and again, it's the speed limit plus 10. So, based on the amount of area to cover, I'm sure there's a couple of areas that aren't 100%. There's no way we can validate that.
I just think within the lakes, I would imagine Lake Caroline would have the same problem with the roads and so forth. That would be a tough tough sell to the people. So I would tend to agree with Mr. Thomas on that situation. I wouldn't want something out there saying that I think that would be a burden for you guys, saying, hey, your house, you have a situation in Lake Caroline or Lake Landor, we're going to be there in 10 minutes, and it doesn't happen. Thank you.
I agree.
Other board members? Thank you, Chief. We appreciate your time.
The date is there, so thank you. And the Apple TV works.
Okay, that takes us to a report from Mr. Gary Shaw. Mr. Shaw, if you want to come forward at this time.
Some pictures I'd like to. Good evening. My name is Gary Shaw, and I live on Long Branch Road in the northern part of the county. I'd like to bring two issues to the Board of Supervisors this evening that I think that I'm asking for your help, I'm asking for your support. First of all, I've lived in Caroline County now my wife and I have lived here for more than 25 years, and again, I live on Long Branch Road. We love this county, it's our home, and we intend to stay here. This is where we want to be. I'm a retiree of 24 years in the United States Army. I'm also a retired school teacher and elementary school principal. And I am completely retired at this time. The first issue I'd like to talk to you about is the trash dumping on Wide Wake and Long Branch Road areas. There's a convenience center located at the intersection of Wide Wake and Route 2, and this issue of trash dumping has been going on now for as long as I've lived there. It's a regular occurrence, and the police in the county are very familiar with this issue. I've enlisted their support to try to find who's doing it, and we've had limited success in doing that because of the fact that unless you find someone physically dumping or have some type of evidence or proof, it's very, very difficult. In those cases where we did have that, it was very successful. The trash includes household trash, furniture, tires, soiled diapers, paint cans, drug paraphernalia, and bottles and cans. And I've been picking up this trash on a weekly basis now for as long as I can remember. I'm out there with my trash can and my whatever trying to pick this stuff up. My wife and I participated in the Adopt a Highway program with VDOT for 2 miles of Long Branch Road. And we had to get out of that about 2, maybe 3 years ago because our name was posted on the sign, and consequently the people started dumping the trash right in my driveway. And there are several pictures there. One, I think the very top, shows one of the examples. And those pictures, if I could say, is there's several examples of what we've had out there. These are not the exception. This is a regular occurrence on that area. I pick it up, and it's becoming very, very difficult. Long Branch Baptist Church also had an area of Long Branch Road that they were picking up, and they had to give it up as well because it just got to the point where, again, you can't keep up with how much it is. We've had the police involved, as I said, and it was limited success because trying to get the evidence to find out who's doing this type of stuff. I went out, then there's a picture in that packet, and I apologize, a couple of those pictures are really faded out. My printer started to die, and I didn't have the means to get them done. But I purchased roughly 10 signs that indicate that the area is under surveillance, camera surveillance, and that violators of dumping will be prosecuted. That has helped some. It hasn't solved the issue at all. I don't know why, but again, we've had some limited success. What I'm asking for is, basically, I'm going to continue to pick up the nuisance trash that occurs out there. The McDonald's bags, the soda cans, the coffee containers and cigarette packs or whatever. I will continue to pick up that as long as I can. But I cannot keep up with the amount and the volume of trash that we're finding out there. And I don't have a solution for you, but I know that we need help up there to pick up that trash. And one picture is just, it's still there right now between Wide Wake and Long Branch, if you're familiar with that area. It's a huge, huge pile of clothing and household items that somebody has just dropped there. And it's becoming unmanageable. And I don't think it's fair to expect citizens to have to go out there and pick that stuff up. Like I said before, I call the police whenever I find drug paraphernalia and whatever. And that's pretty often. But I feel somewhat guilty calling a police deputy all the way from the far side of the county to come over so he can pick up a couple syringes or a burnt spoon or whatever. But again, this is happening all the time. This is not a rare occurrence. So what I'm asking for is a solution. And I'm coming before you today because I don't have one. But I know that I can't keep picking it up. And nobody else seems to be doing much of it either. So that's the first issue. I'm thankful that we have a convenience center there where citizens can dump their trash. But still, it's just not getting done the way I think it should. Do you have any questions about that issue, please?
And I'm sure board members may have questions. Let me just say what's been done so far to try to address this issue. Because there have been some involvement on the part of the county to try to address this issue. I know I talked with Mr. Shaw probably about a month and a half ago.
Yes, sir.
And that was the first time that I was aware that this issue occurred. Of course, immediately, Mr. Our Public Works Director, Mr. Shebel, came up and we talked with Mr. Shaw, and I believe we got some county people out to address that situation at that time. Of course, prior to that time, you know, we initiated the convenience center sites, and we placed them, you know, sporadically around the county, hoping that, because this isn't the only place in the county where this kind of issue takes place. And so when we designed the convenience center sites, we were hoping that with them being manned and people knowing the hours they could come and just deposit their trash in an acceptable fashion. And I think that has helped. It certainly has not, it has not taken care of the problem, but I think it's helped. And as I said, I know Mr. Shebel and the county came and to address that. I don't know, you know, whether, and I wasn't aware that after that happened, that this occurrence was still going on. The other thing that we've done already is, you know, we kind of asked citizens, and this works sometimes it does not, but in the rural area, it's very easy for people to dump and kind of go on, and it's kind of hard to catch them. And so one of the things some citizens have done is to try to put some type of fencing or something in the areas of where people come onto your property. You know, sometimes that makes it a little more difficult for people to come onto the property and dump. And of course, I know even at the convenience center sites, people have dumped outside the sites when they were closed. And I know they've gone through the trash, and occasionally they'll find who the owners were, and those people have been fined, or you know. So I guess what I'm saying is that we've done some things. Now, obviously, if it's not working, we have to try and figure out what else we can do in addition to what we've already done. But I just wanted to be noted that, you know, we have tried to address that issue, not just with Mr. Shaw, but certainly with other board members as well, with other citizens from other districts as well. So having said that, if you have, okay.
I'm just wondering, what is the fine for illegal dumping?
I talked to Sheriff Lippa.
Yeah, Sheriff Moses, Major Mosier. Major, excuse me, I'm seeing it in the future.
It varies from judge to judge, but it's up to $500 fine. for littering. We've been working with Mr. Shaw for a number of years for this problem. We've actually had cameras out there. We've had people go through the trash. We have had limited success in prosecuting people for littering, but it's like Mr. Taylor said, it's a very rural area, and it's not just bags of trash. It may be just somebody going by throwing McDonald's bags out.
Is there a difference between littering and illegal dumping?
Well, yeah, you have illegal dumping as well, and the fine is going to be the same for both. Yeah, that's right.
So if we wanted that increase, we'd have to...
I would have to check the statute to see if the county can
right.
impose any additional ordinances that would actually incur more of a fine or something like that.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Culley, if we could look and see if the county can impose additional fine. I'm not sure if we can or not. I'm sure it's regulated by the state probably, but if we could look at that and see if there's anything that we could do to help this issue, I think anything we do will be greatly appreciated, even if we put some additional signs out there.
We were addressing the dumping in front of the convenience sites and enforcing that and charging people, and then what happens is it turns out it comes back on Mr. Shaw's property. So it may be
and it's possible that there could be a correlation between the hours of operation. So maybe we need to look at extending some hours to see if that in some way helps the situation. If it helps the situation, then the mere fact that we've given people an opportunity to dump legally in the convenience site may be an answer.
I certainly think that would be worth looking at. Mr. Chairman?
I was just saying,
Ms. Akers and then Mr. Black.
could we look at doing something now? I know in some localities what they do is they'll have one site will be open on a Tuesday and the day will be, another site will be closed on that Tuesday. But not all sites in the county that I'm thinking of is closed on the same day. They're closed on different days. Now it's going to have to get people to get readjusted to when a site is closed. Now I understand that, but it may be in the long run the best thing to do. Because I'll be quite honest with you, we've had this now for what, many years as far as being closed on Wednesday. And there are some Wednesdays I get up and I go to the convenience center because I forget about that the day is Wednesday or that they're closed on Wednesday. And so, because every day is Sunday basically when you retire. So I just get, I'm just not sure that we shouldn't look at doing something along those lines. But secondly, Major, you said that you had at some point tried surveillance cameras.
That's correct.
And what happened? Did they just not catch anybody, or were you not able to read, the license plates, or not able to get the information off of the surveillance camera, or what?
Yeah, it's very difficult, especially in a well-traveled road. The camera usually operates off vibration or movement, and we would fill up the film fairly fast on the camera, and then trying to determine. Then you have to capture either the identity of the person or the vehicle tag number. It's very difficult.
When did we last try it?
Oh, we had a case right in my driveway. The one picture, and it's a poor picture, but it shows that I circled a camera that they placed on the tree.
Yes.
And when that camera was placed, within about a week and a half, we caught an individual that came down Long Branch Road from Bowling Green, and they drove right past the convenience center, which was closed, of course, about 3 in the morning, backed up into my driveway about 30 or 40 feet, and then proceeded to dump about 7 or 8 bags, huge bags of trash. That camera, as clear as I'm looking at you right now, had the license plate number, the pictures of the individuals involved, and they were caught, they were prosecuted, they got a very significant fine. So it was just as crystal clear as you can possibly imagine. But again, as the Major said, to do that in the area would require
multiple cameras.
A lot of cameras, right?
Yeah.
But you indicated earlier that they were still dumping in your driveway, or.
Well, what happened was, because my name was posted on the Adopt a Highway sign just up from my home, they started dumping right in my driveway. And I do not call the police on every instance. It would be too much. But it's these pictures, please, I assure you, these are a regular occurrence. We've had at least 4 to 5 instances since you were out, Mr. Taylor, that big piles of stuff that they dumped. And the police have come on several, but it's a number of cases.
You were talking about the camera, and you were talking about the film that's So it's pretty expensive to operate that.
It feels like.
No.
It just fills up quickly.
It's all digital, there's no film.
Oh.
You know, it just fills up if you want to get it close to the road, but back on his driveway, it's a little different story. But to get some of the dumping on close to the road, it only holds so much data in the actual camera, so.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, okay. All right, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, are there any particular days that you notice that are worse than other days, or is it?
No, sir. It really is, there's no specific pattern. But just another small example, we had a case, earlier last year where an individual went to the convenience site at the proper hour, drove in, and he had 4 huge truck tires, but they had rims on. And the convenience center will not take the tires with the rims. So they turned him away. He went directly over to Long Branch Road, and he dumped them there. And the way we found this individual, it was to go back to the convenience center and asked if anybody had done that. And sure enough, they recognized the individual, and the policeman went over and apprehended him. But that's an example. It's just, you cannot combat that type of thing, I don't think.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I think we've talked about this before. I mean, I think one of the things we can get from the sheriff's office would be nice to get some data of how many tickets, if we can get that from you, how many tickets have been written in the last couple of years, because I think it's one of the things is an enforcement issue. I think if it's out there that people can't do this, that would be a huge help, number one. Number two, I think it is going to take some pulling some people's heads together, because it is over multiple districts. I mean, it is in my district. I'll call VDOT, you know, at least probably once a month. Sean Nelson, they're great getting the prisoners out there to clean up the trash. But it is very, very common coming from basically the Spotsylvania County line all the way down to the Route 1 intersection there that it occurs. I mean, I know personally in the last couple months, I've actually had two contacts by constituent, actually from Mr. Akers, one on CCC Road and one in Bridlewood, where there was an incident where there was dumping in the back of Bridlewood, and then someone on CCC Road, they're saying they'd moved in, they love the county, but they're just wanted to move to a rural area, and there's just trash constantly. I think it is a cross-county issue, and I think that we do need to figure out, because it's property values. I mean, if people are going to visit Lake Caroline or Lake Landor or Bowling Green and they're seeing trash along the road, it just doesn't say a lot about us. And I think that is something that we need to figure out. I don't know what the solution is. I'm not saying I have a solution, but we do know the problem exists. I do feel bad for Mr. Nelson, because I'll call him up and say, hey, I need trash on Ladysmith Road, and a week later, 2 weeks later, it's back to where it was, you know, after they do a great job. They do a great job picking up that trash. They do. But it's 1 or 2 weeks later, I mean, coming to the meeting tonight, there was at least 2 or 3 full bags of trash between Bridlewood subdivision and Lake Landor on the side of the road. And, you know, people complain about that, but unless it starts hitting people's pocketbooks, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is, but we've got to try to figure out something. Thank you.
Well, you know, if you will, I think one of the things we probably need to do is to look at the hours that the convenience centers are operating. Maybe we need to make some adjustment. I don't know. I don't think we need to just go in and start changing, but I guess if we could kind of try and determine when these occurrences are, the majority of the time, obviously it's when the convenience center is not open. Now certainly it'll never be open at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm sure of that. But you know, I don't know whether we need to look at later than 7, or, you know, or maybe some open on Wednesday, some being closed on Wednesday. You know, again, I don't have the answer, but I do know that as a board, we need to sit down with Joey and also with the police department, maybe, and see if we can put our heads together and come up with some recommendations that might help to address it. Because as has been said, you're not the only person with this issue. You just happen to be the only one here tonight. But I'm sure if other people had known you were going to come, I'm pretty sure they would have come also. Mm-hmm. So again, we will look at it. I don't have an answer for you now, but certainly it's something that we need to get on our agenda and talk about and see how we can try to address it. Now, to be very honest about it, I don't think we're ever going to get rid of it totally. I think it goes with being in the rural area. But certainly we can do a little better than this. It should not be to this magnitude, and we'll look at it.
Okay. I just, like I said, I will continue to pick up the Nitnoy bags and bottles of stuff, but I just cannot keep picking up the big piles. And there's piles there as we speak. They're sitting there right now.
Right. And then I will say, if you notice a particular pattern, you don't have a problem calling me. I don't have a problem, relaying that information to the proper people,
yes,
so that we can try to get a handle on it. We will do everything we can.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
The second issue, and I'll try to be as brief as I possibly can. I respect your time. It's the issue of Henderson Company and the burro pit that they're operating up in the northern part of the county off Long Branch Road. This is the second time this has happened. Like I said, I've lived here more than 25 years, and the first time it happened was about 20 years ago. And it's the same occurrence. At that time, I called the county because there was heavy truck traffic and heavy equipment operating. I called the county, and at that time, they didn't know anything was going on. They came out, and subsequently, the operation was shut down. It was over. But now, back this last August, it had been going on for about 3 or 4 weeks, and I finally called the county and said, hey, what is going on back there again? And it turns out that Henderson Company was back there operating the same burro pit. And I called the police because they were operating these large tandem dump trucks, and they would park the trucks right on Long Branch Road because it's only a one-way road, one lane road back to the pit. So therefore, they had to wait for the full trucks to come out so the other trucks could proceed in. It was a terrible safety situation. I mean, there were people, even the mail lady talked to me. She said, I don't know what to do because they would block the road, and she would have to skirt around them right on that S-curve. And it's a dangerous curve in the best of times anyway. But I called the police, and finally they put out some signage, but finally the operation was shut down. Again, this is the second time it's happened. And now what I find is there's been an agreement where they have halted the operation, but they have been given 2 days to go back and to continue to remove material, which I don't understand why we would give them 2 more days to remove material when they were found in violation of the county ordinance. And if the last time I came before the council over 20 years ago, they said that they were going to go in and regrade and reseed and fix all that they had done. Sir, that never happened. And I don't know if it's going to happen again. According to the agreement, and I've got a copy of it, it says that I think they're given 30 to 45 days to go in there to take care of what's happened. They don't admit fault on this. They don't think that they've done anything wrong. And it's one of those, you fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. So, or vice versa. But it's just, I don't understand how this happens. How do they come into this county, our home, and do this type of operation, and no one knows about it? No one knows about it. My well at my home is 38 feet. And if you'll check, you'll see that most of the homes on Long Branch Road and also the Caroline Village area, they're about the same. They have already dug down, according to Mr. Fincham, about 17 feet. But they've also hauled items in there, and I don't know what they've hauled in there, what they have buried in the ground. I just can't believe this has happened again. It's the same operation. He turns up his nose at this county. He doesn't live here. He has no stake here. I think it's wrong. And I think it should be stopped for good.
Yeah. Okay, and again, I can bring the board up to date on what's been done so far, and certainly any board member who wants to chime in can do that. But certainly I sympathize with you. We've had conversations about this, Mr. Sean, and we've talked about what happened and talked with planning department, and basically one of the issues that was told to the board was that it happened 20 years ago, so I don't know, some people were on the board, some weren't. But at any rate, this last time, they had a permit. Now, they didn't have a county permit, but they had an EMS permit by the state, which still did not allow them to do what they did. But it did say that they had to clean it up, they had to do whatever, put it back like it was, but they still violated a county ordinance.
And they don't see it that way, Mr.
Right.
Taylor.
Well, we were told basically that in most situations of this nature, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, or Mr. Fincham, or the attorneys as well, we were told that in most situations like this, they're usually told, obviously, that you have to stop the operation, you have to put it back into the same shape that it was in when you went in the first place. And you're giving, I guess, a warning. And basically what was said was that if we go to court, under what normally happens in these situations, that's probably what the outcome is going to be. Now, we don't have any way of knowing unless you go, but that's what we were told. But the other thing was that they have to clean it up, but if they, and my understanding is, if we go this route and they do it again, we can automatically get an injunction against them that will shut them down for good until they're fined or whatever the circumstance is. Whereas if we had just gone to court, we may not have gotten that. Then the other thing was there was a time involvement. If we had gone to court, they could have appealed and they could have dragged it on, and it would have been sometime up into next year maybe before we actually got anything actually done. This way, they had, I believe, until the 30th of September, but they were allowed 2 days, which I have a little issue with that, but they were allowed 2 days, and then after the 30th of September, they were allowed 45 days to go in and clean up, put it back like it was, and make sure they fixed, any damage or anything that's caused. Now, whether or not they're going to do that, I can't sit here and say they are, but certainly if they don't, then they are violating the agreement, which then brings in the injunction or whatever we can do next. So that's kind of where we are.
If they damage the water, the aquifer out there, I would dare say that there will be many private wells that have to be dug, and somebody will have to pay for that.
Right. And I'm certainly not arguing that point, but I think at this point, that would happen anyway. I mean, if their wells damaged as a result of what they did, we could go to court with them, but if we can't, and I'm certainly not an attorney, but if we couldn't show that damage at the time, I don't know that they would be held responsible for it. So, again, and don't get me wrong, I'm certainly not arguing for them. I'm just saying,
with the 38-foot well, and you're already down 17 feet, you don't have much room there. Plus,
right.
We don't know, we really don't know how far they went down.
Right. And that's true.
And what they buried there.
Yeah, and I certainly don't argue that point. I'm just, we were basically told, based on the information that we had, the best course of action to take was to do what we did. It would give us the opportunity to do the injunction if they came back. It would be a quick way to get rid of this problem, to end this problem, rather than drag it out, till sometime next year, thus giving them a chance to go in there and do even more damage. So, that's kind of where we are with that. And of course, other board members, if you want to.
Mr. Taylor, all I can say is, at the meeting, I do remember now, and it was for this board trying to find a resolution where we had some control. If we did not let that finish. It was really picking the lesser of two evils.
Yes, sir.
To where we had some, as Mr. Taylor so articulated, we had some control over it happening again. If we had gone in, they could have continued the process, but now we do have something in place that allows us some latitude in stopping it from happening again. So wasn't the absolute best resolution, but, and certainly we hope nothing bad happens, but we were basically kind of, hands were tied in terms of what we could do there.
Well, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come here and say this. I certainly hope that they will take care of the issue up there and not do this in any other part of the county.
Mr. Shaw,
Sir.
if you see a dump truck drive onto the property,
Yes, sir.
call the sheriff's office.
Okay, sir.
They are done. They are not allowed. They have 8 days. If a dump truck arrives after the 30th of September, call the sheriff's office.
All right, sir. Thank you.
And when they do come to refurbish the area, we will have county persons there to oversee that and to do what we can to make sure that it's put back the way it was and
Yes,
there's
sir.
no permanent damage.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to come here tonight.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to the consent agenda, Recreational Advisory Committee. There are board members
I
who
would
need
like to make an appointment of Whitney Watts to the Recreation Committee from the Bowling Green District.
Okay. Are other board members wanting to make recommendations tonight? Or is that the only one?
It's only one.
Oh, okay.
I
Okay.
thought we had 2 at large. Okay, then we can do the 2 at large next month.
Okay, right. Okay, so you want to make that in the form of a motion?
I'd like to nominate Whitney Watts to be the Recreation Advisory Committee member from the Bowling Green District.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that Whitney Watts would be named as the Recreation Advisory person to represent the Bowling Green District. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. That takes us to the consent agenda. Consent agenda items A, B, C, E, F, G, H, and I. Is there any consent agenda item that any board member would like to pull or question? If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, other than item D.
So move.
Second.
Been moved and properly second that we would approve the consent agenda as presented with the exception of item D. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right, we have a closed meeting. Okay, so we have a closed meeting. We will entertain a motion to go into closed meeting under section 2.2-3711A5 Code of Virginia. Discussion concerning respective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the business or industry interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the community.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Moved and properly second that we go into closed section under those just mentioned sections and codes. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. We're going to now reconvene the September 22nd Caroline County Board of Supervisors meeting. All right. We need a motion to come out of closed.
I'll make a motion we come out of closed session.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that we will come out of closed session. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Mr. Thomas, do you certify that we only discuss those things that we went in to closed session to discuss?
Mr. Chairman, I so certify.
Mr. Black?
I so certify.
Mr. Underwood?
I so certify.
Mr. Akers?
I so certify.
Mr. Sealy?
I so certify.
And I so certify. Is there a motion at this time?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion that we apply for an HB2 grant, House Bill 2 project funding for Route 639 improvements in the amount of $28,355,000 as needed for a 4-lane divided typical road section with other supporting improvements using revenue sharing in the amount of $12 million, of which the county match is $6 million.
Second. It's been moved and properly second that we would apply for the HB grant as presented. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Let's move to, this takes us to the public comment section of our meeting. I apologize. Public comment starts normally at 7:30, but our closed meeting went longer than we had anticipated, so I certainly apologize for any inconvenience. But at this time, we will go directly to the public comment section of the meeting. If there are citizens who would like to address the board on any issue that's not on the agenda, you may come forward at this time, state your name, your district if it's applicable. Any citizen desiring to approach the board on any issue that's not on the agenda, you may come forth at this time. Again, any board member wishing to approach the board may come at this time. Seeing no citizen with the intention to approach the board, I will declare the public comment section of the meeting over. That takes us to unfinished business. Continued first reading of amendment of elderly and disabled tax ordinance.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, as you recall, we at the last board meeting discussed this issue and ultimately decided to advertise a public hearing to increase the maximum total tax exemption from the current $800 to $1,500. And since that discussion, Sharon Carter has looked at the issue in more depth, and she's concluded that raising the maximum to either $1,200 or $1,500 really would only benefit the same people that are already benefiting from the ordinance. And her recommendation to allow additional citizens to benefit is to cap the total amount at $1,000, increase it from $800 to $1,000, but also raise the maximum income allowance from $35,000 to $40,000. And to bolster her case, she's included some comparison to, I think, 5 surrounding localities that's in the cover memo in the board packet, which show that Caroline has the lowest maximum income allowance of those 5 localities, with the exception of Essex County, I believe. So staff has not, at this point, advertised the public hearing with the $1,500 exemption in light of Mrs. Carter's new recommendation. And so we need to know tonight how you want to pursue it from here, whether you want to go ahead and stick with the original plan and advertise the public hearing, or make a change along the lines of what Mrs. Carter has recommended. She's not here this evening. She's at a conference, so if you want to table it and discuss it in more depth with her, we could do that as well, but that's where we are at this point.
I guess this is my point, since she is not here, and there may be questions that board members have for her that might help to determine which way we need to go on this. It might be better to table it until our next meeting when she's here, unless the board is comfortable with going in either direction at this point.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
And maybe the county attorney could help us. In this particular case, if we were to move forward and advertise for a public hearing, with Mrs. Carter's suggestion of raising the income cap, could we, after the public hearing, change the values and make any other changes? It's not like a rezoning where proffers are in, and yeah.
I think you could probably lower the cap from what you could decrease the amounts but not raise the amounts.
Which she wants us to raise the cap.
I know, but I mean, if you advertised for $1,000